So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Advocacy 301, The Experience. This webinar is the third and final webinar in a three-part series to help you get equipped to engage with and educate your elected officials. In today's webinar, we're going to be observing 4 acted-out simulations that depict exactly what it's like to engage with legislators and their staff. That way, when you have your meeting for the first time, with a legislator or with their staff, you're going to know exactly what to expect, and there will be no more intimidation factor. So as you probably heard, today's webinar is being recorded, and the slides as well will be shared with everyone who registered. I'll try and repeat that again later for folks who are still joining, but the recording and the slides will be shared with everyone. So with that, before we jump into things, I do want folks to introduce themselves in the chat. I think it can be really helpful to see who all is on the call. So when introducing yourself, please just say your name and your organization. For example, my name is Hale Crumley, and I am the policy manager at Prosperity, Indiana. So please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat now so we can see who all is on here before we get started. And while you're introducing yourself, I also want to take a moment to introduce the organization that is hosting today's event. Prosperity Indiana is Indiana's Association for Community Economic Development. We have approximately 200 members across the state of Indiana, all 92 counties, and that's also spanning pretty much every sector. So if you would like to join the network to get access to our exclusive member benefits, please reach out to us. We would love to talk to you. But with that, I now want to give our 3 actors the opportunity to introduce themselves so that you can learn a bit about their general credibility and experience when they are portraying the roles that you're about to see. So first up in introductions will be Andrew, and then we can move down the list you see here on the screen. Andrew?
Afternoon, everybody. And first of all, thanks, Hale. Thanks for putting together this series. It's been a great series as it has been the past couple of years. I really appreciate the chance to talk to everyone today. I'm Andrew Bradley. I'm Senior Director of Policy and Strategy for Prosperity, Indiana. I've been doing advocacy work since about 2012. First for the 6 years with the Indiana Institute for Working Families, now the Indiana Community Action Poverty Institute. So doing a lot of advocacy on behalf of low and middle income families, helping them to reach economic self-sufficiency. Then I spent a little bit of time in DC with a group called the National Skills Coalition, doing advocacy in kind of a different way. I helped put together coalitions of state advocates on workforce development issues, helping to upskill low-income adults so that they could get into family-sustaining careers. And then now for the past going on 5 years, I've been at Prosperity, Indiana, working on the issues that you'll hear about today: affordable housing, community development resources, and asset building and consumer protections.
I'll go ahead and jump in. I'm Marie Beeson. I am the Capacity Building Director for Prosperity, Indiana. I've been with PI a little over 3 years now, going on 4. And I help build the skills, talent, tools, and networks of our 200 organizational members and 1,200 community economic development professionals. I am a community theater advocate and actress. And Hale asked me to play a role in this seminar last year, and I got a call back for a second go round. So I'm really excited to be a part of today's conversation. I have some experience in reaching out to legislators, but primarily busy board members and busy funders. So my perspective as the legislative assistant to Chairman Representative Busy, will be based on that experience. Thanks.
Okay, I see I've been renamed appropriately. My name is actually Lindsay right now. I'll go jump into character in a second. But it's nice to meet you all. I'm with Citizens Action Coalition. We work statewide, mostly on ratepayer advocacy, which means that if you pay a utility bill, we are advocating for you to have a lower bill, usually a lower bill. We've never really advocated for an increase, if you will, but we have always tried to make sure that your state legislators and your state utility commission are making good decisions. That doesn't always happen, but here we are. Such is the world of advocacy. I call it job security. So it's nice to meet you all. Thank you for being here, and I'm excited to get moving forward. I have my own PR firm working in legislative communications, and I've spent a lot of time here at the State House, where I am today, in one of the phone booths, and where you can practically the only place you can be quiet here at the State House. So I'm happy to be here and excited that you're also here.
Lindsay, if somebody wanted to reach you for PR needs, how could they reach out?
Let me pull my chat up. I'm trying to let Hale be the chat Meisterin. Did I do that right? Is my English, or is my German correctly? Okay, here we go. Here's my email address. If you ever need any communications or PR assistance, especially with the State House, that's me. And here is my phone number. And I say that I'm always accepting new clients, but of course, that depends on the subject matter. If there's someone better for you, I'll let you know who they are.
Awesome. Thanks, Lindsay. Plug away. I think that's great because that's perfect for the topic, right? So thank you all. I'm so glad to have all of you here today to share your expertise. So from here on out, we're going to be beginning our simulations, which will be clearly labeled on the screen. And then I'm going to unshare the screen so that you can really focus on the speakers. Once the skit is done, our actors are going to briefly dissect how the simulation went, and if they had any additional tips they wanted to share with you that maybe they weren't just, able to work in. And then when dissection is done, Andrew will give me the cue and I'll move on to explaining the next simulation. So our first simulation is going to depict our advocate, Andrew, calling a legislator's office. The phone will be answered by Marie, the legislative assistant, who will take notes on really anything that Andrew wants to share. And so I'm going to unshare my screen now so that we can begin.
All right, thanks, Hale. And for this, I just want to set out that each of these simulations is based on the premise that we're assuming that you have watched and followed along and learned from our Advocacy 101, the rules, and also our Advocacy 201 session, which is about building relationships. And so from that, we show you how to find your legislators, how to learn some about them, and even literally what numbers to call and how to reach out. So we're assuming that I've done that work. I know what representatives and senators I need to reach out to. And so now I'm going to reach out to Chairman Busy. So I'm putting the number in my phone and I'm calling up, and now it's ringing.
Chairman Busy's office, how may I help you?
Hi, my name is Andrew Bradley. I'm with Acme Community Development Corporation, and I wanted to set up a meeting with Chairman Busy.
Oh, are you a constituent?
Well, I actually don't live in the chairman's district, but my community development corporation serves a large part of her district. So want to express some of the issues that I know that a lot of her constituents deal with.
Well, the chairman is very busy right now. I'm not sure how much time that we would be able to allot for you. Can you give me maybe an overview of what you would like to discuss, please?
Sure, yes. So I want to talk really especially about housing and home ownership issues. My community development corporation tries to help Hoosiers get into home ownership pathways. And we would like to find more ways to be able to do that. A lot of Hoosiers are being priced out of home ownership. And so I wanted to talk about an idea that I've been talking with Prosperity Indiana about for an affordable home ownership tax credit. So this would allow developers to be able to create new or redevelop vacant and abandoned properties and turn them into affordable homes that homeowners could purchase if they're at or below 120% area median income.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Chairman Busy is really packed, particularly during this session. How long do you think, or how much time would you like of the chairman's time?
Well, I think that talking about this issue, probably about half an hour.
That's stretching the availability that I have at the moment. I could probably give you maybe 10 minutes in 4 weeks.
Okay, I'll take that. And if something were to open up sooner, could I give you my info so that I could be moved up in the slot?
Sure. So 10 minutes, let's say January 16th. If anything pops up, is there another date maybe sooner that you would like to, or that I should look at for another availability?
Let's see. I think the 16th works well because I'll be able to come to Indianapolis that day. Um, Really, anything on Tuesdays and Thursdays are usually pretty flexible on my end.
Okay. On Wednesday, the chairman is at our home office, so I could set something up there maybe in 2 weeks if that's acceptable. Or
Okay, so in the district, yeah, I think that would
yeah.
work because it'd be
Okay,
easier for me to pop over.
great. Let's say 10 o'clock. And
Okay,
do you like to give me an email that I can respond to and send a calendar invitation to you?
sure. So that would be A Bradley at acmecdc.org.
All right. And can I have a telephone number as well?
Sure. Area code 812-555-1298.
All right. Well, I will make sure that the chairman is made aware of what you just shared with me, a very high level overview of what you would like to speak on. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the district in about 2 weeks.
Okay, and so just so I have it in my notes, so we said 10 a.m. On Wednesday the 8th. Is that Eastern or Central Time?
That would be Eastern time.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then the 16th is a backup, right?
I can still hold some time there, but would appreciate you letting us know as soon as possible if anything changes, and I will do the same for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.
All right, so debrief. What do we think? I thought that was pretty accurate. This chairman is very, very busy.
Well, the other thing is I was being very kind of trying to do something sooner because the last time we did this, I gave a 4 weeks notice out and we had to stick with that, or Andrew had to negotiate. And since he wasn't negotiating, I thought I'd throw him a bone.
Yeah, I would say, from my experience, you never know exactly what you'll get. Sometimes, you'll get offered something right then. Lindsay, I'd be interested to hear from your experience. I think sometimes you're told to call back, or, you're basically just told that they're kind of blanket busy for a long time, and, that you can fill out a form online. Um, what did you think about how realistic the options we got were?
Very good. There are times when you will not have an opportunity to have any input as to the day or meeting time that you would prefer. And so sometimes they'll work with you, and sometimes they're just simply not able to. And then some other times they will not give you any options whatsoever. And they'll simply say, Chairperson Busy is just not able to meet with you this year. And that's the most frustrating portion of the advocacy side of things. And that happens. I'm not going to say that happens often. It does not. But it does happen sometimes. So you have to keep on them and keep calling back until you get a time. And I am, as a prior legislative staffer, I can truly say that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And so you should always be persistent.
Andrew, when I was prepping, I did have another question. How often do you have to give like the bill number, or who's leading or authored the bill to the legislative assistants? When I saw your recap, didn't include any of that data. Do the legislative assistants usually need that as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends when you're calling. And so actually, like right now, we don't yet have those bill numbers at this point in the calendar. Come, the first week or two of January, we will. So I went into this in the mindset of like, our caller knew the issue and knew that they wanted to, have this conversation, especially before session really got up and going. and wanted to support this concept and talk about something that they think is going to become legislation. But that always helps if you have a specific bill number. Usually, like the bill number and say the title is enough because the legislative assistant can find out all the additional information. And so when I was giving the description I did, that was probably more than, a typical constituent would really need to convey. But that helped to say that I'm not just calling about housing. I'm calling because I work in the community. I have some knowledge as a staff member at a community development corporation. I have interest to participate in kind of the providing of affordable housing and this development through this tax credit proposal. But I'm not trying to overwhelm with a whole lot of data or anything at this point, because you're really not convincing the legislative assistant of much beyond this is a constituent who is worth the legislator's time.
Okay. Are we done with debrief? Ready to do the next simulation? Andrew?
Sounds good to me. Sure.
All right. All right. So for the second simulation, number 2, this is a meeting with Representative Receptive, which will be Lindsay. And Andrew is again our advocate having this meeting. Important to know, Representative Receptive is going to be fairly open-minded and interested in what the advocate has to say, but she isn't an expert herself. She may have some initial misconceptions and questions, and I think it's right there in the name, and Representative Receptive. So that is kind of the framework for this specific simulation, and I'm going to unshare again so that Andrew can kick us off.
All right. And I think for this, let's say that this is a virtual meeting. So I've got Representative Receptive on a pre-scheduled Zoom meeting, just like we're on now. And we have this. So we're dialing in when we're pulled up. So thanks for joining us, Representative Receptive. Really glad to see you.
Of course. Thank you for setting this up. I'm glad we could make time.
How were your holidays?
They are amazing and got some rest, and now we're ready to go do good for Hoosiers, I hope.
All right. We're glad you got to time to spend with your family and got to rest up, because I bet this is going to be a pretty busy session for you.
It already is, and I hope everyone is gearing up.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. I know we've had a chance to meet before. You came and visited us at Heartland Community Action before, so you've seen some of the good work that we do, Head Start and weatherization, and some services for low-income Hoosiers. And there's a specific reason I want to talk with you today. I'm actually concerned about a piece of legislation that we hear that's coming down the road for this session. I don't know yet if it has a bill number or who the author is. We've been hearing a lot about this problem of criminalization of homelessness, and just wanted to make sure that you're aware of it in case it's something that you hear about at the State House.
Yes, definitely. And I've even had folks ask me about introducing legislation to further criminalize homelessness. Obviously, this is not an area that I have any expertise in, but I am hesitant to move forward given the large amount of concern and outcry that I've seen in just simply the public sphere. And so I would depend on your information and subject matter expertise to help guide me.
Well, thank you. When we've met before, that at Heartland Community Action, we're trying to find pathways to economic self-sustainability for our families. And we're dealing with a limited amount of resources. Often housing is one of the most expensive costs that Hoosiers have. We are a member of both Prosperity Indiana and the Hoosier Housing Needs Coalition. That's where we've learned a lot about this issue. We participated in their webinar series earlier this year, learned things like Indiana has a real lack of affordable housing. We actually are the second lowest rate of affordable rental housing in the Midwest for the lowest income households. So we're already dealing with a lack of supply. And then we think that increased costs are forcing a lot of Hoosiers into eviction and homelessness. And in fact, a stat that I wrote down is that there has been an 11% increase in homelessness in Indiana, but only a 3% increase in the overall population. So that really matches with what our clients are telling us, that, even a couple years ago, with the same jobs that they have now, they were able to make rent, and they aren't anymore. And so we've had families who've had to sleep in their cars, who children have had to transfer schools. They've had to couch surf from time to time. And so that homelessness problem is really hitting home for families. So
Could you
that's
repeat
why.
that stat for me one more time? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm wondering if you could just repeat that stat for me one more time.
Sure, yeah. So then we got this from Prosperity, Indiana, that there's been an 11% increase in Hoosiers experiencing homelessness since 2017. But in that same time, the overall population in Indiana has only gone up 3%. So the way they tell it, it's because we have too little housing to go around. And as costs have increased, Hoosiers get pushed out of housing and into
Okay, thank you.
homelessness.
Thank you.
Um, so again, this is it's a direct problem for the families that we serve. Um, and the issue that we're seeing with this bill is that it would not only take away the existing proven funds from the state budget, called the Housing First Appropriation, $1 million to the state, which doesn't go nearly far enough, but it would take that away. But also, it would put all that burden directly onto communities by requiring the criminalization of homelessness, and by that, we mean those families would be subject to fines and tickets, and even being put in jail just for not having a place to sleep. So again, we think that that's really, A, dangerous to our families, but also B, that pushes them even further from self-sufficiency, because suddenly they have all the same problems and lack of housing, but now they have a criminal record on top of it. So would really hope that that's something that you keep an eye out for, and you let us know about, if we can help provide any support during this session.
I appreciate that very much. Like I said before, I'm not the expert. And so that pressure from outside the state house on these issues really helps give me cover as a legislator to be able to say, look, my constituents don't want this. And so, or to the alternate viewpoint, my constituents might say they do want this. And so, while I'm not saying that's the experience I'm having right now, that does allow me to you make good use of the pressure that's from outside the building.
Mm-hmm. Is this something that you're hearing about at the State House?
I would say I've heard about this maybe once or twice. This is not something that I don't know of any legislation that's coming. But again, I'm only one of 150 legislators, and I haven't talked to everybody. But I haven't heard of any legislation coming forth that would implement any type of, like you mentioned, fines or tickets or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I guess I'm glad to hear that it's not something that is all around you right now, but we are concerned about this. Prosperity Indiana told us that bills like this have passed in 11 other states already, and that there was a bill that was introduced in Indiana last year. It didn't go far, but they're expecting that something like it is going to come back again. So we just want to have these conversations before it becomes a last minute crisis.
I will say that one of the cities in my district did attempt this.
Okay. Well, so I think that's something worth knowing is that some cities, this bill doesn't have anything to do with what cities are allowed to do in terms of how they want to handle um, criminalization if they choose to. But unfortunately, what it would do is it does have to do with, it would force every local government to do criminalization. So, for example, we know that there are some places that have really good partnerships between their law enforcement and their homeless services departments. And so this would really interfere with that. And again, that's the type of thing that in our community would be a real problem. We've worked really hard to foster positive relationships with our local police department. And, we're not the local homelessness shelter, but we work really closely with them. And we don't want to see, those services disrupted or prevented.
I really appreciate the information. Is there anything else you wanted to ask me about?
I wanted to ask your advice, like, how can we be of help to you on this issue as the session goes forward? Like, sometimes I feel like we're just sitting here, we're 100 miles away and don't know what we can do once, you get in the thick of the session. Like, what should we be planning on?
I think it's so important that you let me know as soon as you're aware of anything, only because I do not believe there is ever too much information in the state house. I don't think there can be enough transparency and information shared, even with us in the building, because we have a lot of topics that we are asked by constituent groups and by, constituents, voters, and staff to keep an eye on. And we also have our committee work. And sometimes those bills aren't necessarily part of our committee. And so I'll depend on you and other advocates to make sure I'm aware of what's happening. And do not worry about possibly telling you something I already know, because I would hate to not know it.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think something else that I think we could do too is we could connect you with some of those clients that I was talking about, that have experienced this, in case it's helpful to share a story, because we have folks that this
Yeah.
would impact or could impact if it were to pass.
I think the storytelling is really key to making sure that that also people have understanding of the issue outside the building, because a lot of people understand issues or say they understand issues inside the state house. They may not, and so making sure folks understand the story behind it, and those clients who are able to tell that story themselves are the best people. I love talking to advocates like you. I love talking to lobbyists all day. I only get my information sometimes from them because folks are busy and they may not have time to email their state rep or state senator. But the fact is, even just 3 or 4 emails, sometimes even just one email, will make my mind up for me. And that's really, really important to remember when you think the world is, against you and there's no way you'd listen to one person. Actually, that's far, far from true. That's actually completely opposite.
All right, thank you very much. And I appreciate your time again, taking away from your busy schedule.
Of course. Thank you so much. And will you please let my LA know? She, even if she doesn't answer, she goes through every piece of information, voicemail, email, send an email to my, if I'm District 20, in the House, my email is h20@in.gov. Send me an email. Just let me know what's happening, and do that versus social media, because I'm not able to keep up on social media the way I can when I'm not in session. And so email is really the best and most official way to make sure that you also get a response when there's an issue that comes up and we vote.
All right. Well, thanks again, Rep Receptive. Really appreciate your time and how willing you are to talk through with us these issues that are important to people in your community.
Thank you for letting me be here and to work alongside you. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, debrief. I thought that was great. There are some representatives and senators that are definitely that receptive. It can happen.
Yeah, Lindsay, great job. I think you captured well. Like, there are some of those legislators. It's kind of the lucky few in some ways that like kind of go out of their way to be helpful and not only like give a perspective to constituents about what's happening behind the scenes, but also I like that the tip about like I can't always keep up on social media, so be sure to reach out to my LA and be sure to tell me when you're hearing new things. That actually does happen, and I think that's a good piece of advice for everyone too.
Lindsay, any thoughts that you wanted to share before we move on to the next skit? All right.
I'm good.
I guess the one other thing that I would say from my perspective in that call was, hopefully people picked up on this wasn't the first time I've talked to Representative Receptive. She's come and done a tour, like we have established kind of a rapport, like I think that the person in that case has like seen her around the community, so has built on a baseline. And I think that in this case, the caller was not from a homelessness service agency, and so maybe was not really an expert on homelessness services, but was able to connect the dots between the work that they do and what they've already talked about with the representative. So kind of like building on the previous times that they've interacted with and making the issue, you know, connected to work and even, personal to the representative in that case. And in this case, receptive was very receptive to those issues and kind of got it, even as she kept saying that she herself was not an expert either.
Okay, great. So for simulation 3, which you should see here on screen just briefly, our advocate is going to be meeting with a different legislator. It's definitely a different person, guys. This time he is meeting with Senator Skeptical, who may be especially uninformed about the issue being discussed and may even have some concerning misconceptions that could result in some pushback. So this is going to be a little bit harder on our advocate, but still very important and worth the time. And, Senator Skeptical might have some reservations about the issue, but will definitely have some questions. That's very, very common. So with that, Andrew, take it away.
Hello, Senator Skeptical. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I've got a meeting after this, so do your best to keep it as brief as you can, sir.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you again for your time. Let me jump into it. Again, appreciate you talking with me. I'm Andrew. I'm with the Prairie Neighborhood Association. We've been in touch before. I came to Prosperity Indiana State House Day last year. And actually, there's a related issue I wanted to talk with you about. We've talked some about housing in the past. And as you know, Prairie Neighborhood Association, we work to try to get Hoosiers into long-term housing solutions and home ownership. One of the things that we're hearing is that there's too many Hoosiers that aren't able to get on that ladder of housing, and they get pushed off into homelessness. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, is a threat that we're hearing about a piece of legislation that would criminalize those Hoosiers who are experiencing homelessness now. So I wonder first if that's something that you've heard about at the State House at all.
Yes, I've heard about that. I'm obviously concerned about the crime. I'm concerned about a lot of the overwhelming incidents that I've heard about, and not only my neighborhood, but also some constituents have peppered me with constantly.
Okay, well, on one hand, I'm sorry to hear that you're hearing about the problem of increased homelessness, but actually that relates to this bill. We're a member of Prosperity Indiana and the Hoosier Housing Needs Coalition, have participated in a webinar series that they did about housing first and this criminalization of homelessness issue. And something stood out for me from those conversations, that there's actually been an 11% increase in Hoosiers experiencing homelessness since 2017, but only a 3% increase in the overall population. And so we're seeing more Hoosiers who can't afford housing anymore and getting pushed into homelessness. And I think that's something that even in your district, Prairie Neighborhoods is seeing that. Some of our clients who had been able to afford housing with the same job are no longer able to afford it. And then when the rent is raised, they end up, they can't afford it. They get evicted, or they're looking for something else on the market, and there's just not enough to go around. So the problem that we're hearing with this bill, there was a bill that came, it was introduced last year, and we hear that a version of it's coming back. And one thing it would do is it would take away some state resources for homelessness services. But also the big thing is it would force every community into kind of a one size fits all approach to homelessness. And that's something I wanted to really emphasize with you, is that whatever you're seeing in Indianapolis when you're down at the State House, that's not really the same circumstances that we're seeing around prairie neighborhoods. And forcing our community to take on that one size approach is going to be counterproductive and actually would put more burden on our community because it doesn't increase housing.
Okay, so you're saying that instead of a basic framework that the state could give locals, it would actually be the flip side of that.
Well, I think what I'm trying to convey is that this bill, it's counterproductive because A, it takes away a resource that has been proven to be effective. But at the same time, it would force local communities to fine and ticket and jail Hoosiers who experience homelessness. And as we've seen, it's really those folks who are priced out of housing that's causing the increase in homelessness.
What about workforce training? Because it seems like a lot of these folks are simply unable to get jobs. And that's what a lot of pressure has been put on us to find solutions to that. What role do you see that playing in this, if any?
I'm glad that you mentioned that because that is actually a service that we provide and we connect people to is workforce training. But this bill really would push people even further from some of those services. Under this bill, the theory is that you fine and ticket and jail people who are experiencing homelessness, and that somehow is going to magically push them into deciding that they want to be housed. And the families that we talk with who are housing unstable, the thing that they want the most is to have a decent place to live. And they need that decent place to live as a baseline. They need the housing first, and then that's what makes them able to take advantage of things like the job training that Prairie Neighborhoods offers. So I don't disagree with you at all that workforce training and skills development are really important, but I want to emphasize that criminalizing the people who are most vulnerable at their most vulnerable moment isn't going to help the jobs problem.
So I'm under a lot of pressure to support a bill like this.
Okay.
Obviously, there's strong lobbies outside the State House that want this. And I don't have anybody expressly asking me for my yes vote yet, but I know that'll happen. I've been told it will happen. So I'm going to need everything I can lean on with you in terms of pushing back. But I also tell you, I've got, quite a bit. I have so many issues I got to keep track of. And this is, while this isn't a priority of mine, I'm inclined to support it. And that I know probably isn't what you want to hear. But a lot of legislators here will blow smoke up your, whatever, and not tell you the truth. But I'm under a lot of pressure to support it, mostly because lobbyists have been in and out all summer asking me for it. But I'm glad to know there's opposition, and that's important when you have a balanced debate at the legislature. So I'm not committing to voting for it, but I'm not committing to voting against it. I'm hopeful that you could at least keep me updated on all of this.
Well, Senator Skeptical, thank you for being transparent with your thinking about this and like how you're weighing the different competing arguments on this. And what I can offer to do is I want to make sure that as you're going through this process that you have the best information. And you're saying that you're hearing from a lot of lobbyists on this. And you can hear, I'm not really a lobbyist. I'm just somebody that works here in your district. And I want to make sure that you are able to be informed by what's happening in your district. So if you would, let me get together with the homelessness service provider from our neighborhood. I also want to talk with the law enforcement and with the local mayor. And I think that they probably have some stories to share about what it would mean for them if suddenly more people were fined and ticketed and jailed, and what that would mean for the resources. Like who's going to pick up the slack? Who's going to have space in jail cells? And who's going to be able to deal with the influx of people who have new criminal records when they're trying to get a job or trying to take advantage of those needed services that you mentioned. So
That's a
again,
good point.
that's
That's a
something that
good
I can
point.
do for you.
Yeah, I'm
Right?
obviously very concerned about jail overcrowding, but I will definitely keep that in mind. If you could get me that info, maybe some stories from folks locally, especially my constituents, because if they're not my constituents, I'm sorry, I got to send them over to their state senator. So yeah, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, that's something that I can promise to do is let me get together with those folks. As I mentioned, we're also a member of Prosperity Indiana. They're working with people like us around the state who are also concerned about this. So they might have some other resources that are, meant for legislators that I don't know about yet. But I promise you, I will get that back to you within by this time Friday night.
Thank you. I got to run to that meeting, but I appreciate your time so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you keeping an open mind on this and taking the time to talk with me. Thanks, Senator
You bet.
Skeptical.
You bet. Take care, sir.
Bye.
Okay, debrief time. What did we think?
Was I too
Lindsay, I think
mean?
no, I think even your Senator Skeptical was fairly generous with kind of some of the intel and saying that they were going to keep an open mind. So sometimes we get even less open-minded than that, but I think that that you did a great job of showing like kind of the competing pressures that legislators can be under.
Some people will tell you that they'll vote for it and they won't. I don't think that's ethical. So I need to do what I can. But to prepare you all reasonably and effectively, you should know that. So do your best to assume that everyone here is doing good, but you just got to go with your gut.
Yeah. Another thing I really liked about the way Lindsay handled that was like, again, we want to assume that the person who called, has had some contact with Senator Skeptical. Maybe she's not as easy to get in touch with as Representative Receptive. Maybe she hasn't made the time to do the tour, so she doesn't have that deep of an understanding. But there's at least been some kind of contact, and therefore, like she recognizes this person. And she also then mentioned some things you could hear pretty early. She's interested in things like jobs, and that's where her mind went to. Is like, well, shouldn't these people be, taking workforce training, and won't that solve the problem? And so rather than like fight her on that, even if that's not necessarily the right argument to how to solve homelessness, I tried to make a connection to a service that my organization offered and the needs in the community, but also, meet her where she's at. She's concerned about jobs, then let's talk about how homelessness is going to hurt filling employer needs. And so hopefully my character would have done some of that background and would have had some idea from her public statements that that's the kind of thing that she was really interested in. So hopefully I was prepared to be able to take the conversation that way while still remaining true to my values and what my organization, the people that they're trying to serve.
Okay, great. I just want to add that I appreciate that Lindsay did not commit to anything at the end because that's super common and it's very frustrating sometimes when you are the advocate in these conversations to explain it as best you can and realize I'm just going to have to come back and with more resources and explain it again. That's just the reality and very realistic. So, with that, I'm going to move us on to simulation 4. So you should be able to see that on screen now. For this fourth and final skit, the advocate, Andrew, will be catching a very quick conversation with yet another legislator, this time Chairwoman Busy. So Andrew's going to encounter Chairwoman Busy, in the hallway at the State House, or maybe even the local grocery store checkout line. So he wants to give a quick elevator pitch. This is going to be faster than the others. He may not be able to say everything he wants to, but wants something for her consideration and just, needs to be respectful of her time and the fact that there isn't much time in general. So this is actually a pretty common scenario, especially at the State House, that I think it'll be really good for folks to witness. So with that, Andrew, please kick us off.
Oh, hi, Chairwoman Busy. It's good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm great. I have a vote in about 2 minutes. They're still talking on the floor, so chop chop, let's go.
Okay, let me keep this really quick. So again, I'm Andrew Bradley. I'm with Rolling Hills Alliance. We've met in the district before. It just happened to be at the State House. So really quick, I wanted to just let you know we've been working with Prosperity Indiana, Community Economic Development Association that we're a member of. We're really excited about an idea that they have for a newborn tax credit. You may know that 24% of Hoosiers are in asset poverty and 40% of Hoosiers have difficulty paying for basic expenses. So we're looking at ways to open economic opportunity. So really briefly, the nub of this is that Prosperity Indiana took a suggestion from our new governor, Braun, and we want to enhance Indiana's existing dependent child exemption deduction and make it flexible to account for the immediate needs of families. So what we want to do is take that existing credit and transform it into a newborn tax credit, like a child tax credit that would be about $500 for families of newborns. So we'd really love it for you to consider giving that bill a hearing when you get a chance. So I wanted to at least let you know that folks, constituents of yours are really excited about this idea.
I love this idea, Andrew. Hang on one sec. I just got to make sure. I got to see if Senator Taylor's still talking. All right, I got another 5. So, actually, it might be 2. I hear the parliamentarian telling Suzanne to move forward. So here's what. Have you gotten a bill for this? Is there a bill for this? A bill number?
We're waiting to hear the bill number, but my understanding that it is going to be introduced.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm not sure it'll be in my committee, but if it is, I assume you'll come back to me and ask for a hearing.
Yes, and that's what I'd like to ask now is like, if it comes to your committee, would you commit to hearing it?
That's a decision that I have to take to leadership, but I'm inclined to. So I don't want to say yes because I don't want to speak out of turn. And you know how it works around here. I got to ask somebody. But I'm inclined to, and I'm hopeful that whose bill is this?
I believe it's Senator Greg Walker's.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Greg hasn't talked to me about this. So, he should probably ask his chairperson if he wants a hearing.
Well, I will let the Prosperity Indiana folks know that you want to talk with him about it. If
Yeah, I got to
okay.
run in a second, but make sure Greg asks for it because I got, people, you got to follow the rules, Larry. If you don't follow the rules, they use it over you.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure that you know that this is something that would address a real on the ground issue that we're having with families with newborn babies can be pushed into poverty, or they don't have money for basic needs like buying a crib, or a stroller. And so this is the type of thing that will not only reduce child poverty, but it'll also set those families up for long-term success. And I know that you really care about making
I
sure that,
do.
yeah.
I do. I have so many dang kids, but I'll be honest with you. I want to hear it and I want to pass it, but that's, I got to do it. I got to do what the big guy tells me to do. So I got to run and vote on this, but I'm here. I'm here for you. Will you tell me? Will you keep me up to date? Will you make sure Greg talks to me?
Yes, and can I reach out to your office and
Yeah,
follow up?
yeah. You
Okay.
got my LA's number.
All right. Well, thanks so much for listening, and hope we can come to a place to hear it this session.
Yeah, you can always pull me off the floor too. So,
All right. Well,
thanks.
thanks
I got to
again,
run.
Chairman Busy.
You bet. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks. Bye.
Awesome. Also very realistic. I've had encounters just like that.
Yeah, Lindsay, you're really channeling some of these legislators and experiences that we hear all the time.
If anybody knows who I channeled, let me know.
I've got a guess, but I think on the webinar, I'll keep that to myself.
Thank you.
But yeah, I'll say that type of I've got to come and go, and like you're kind of hearing that even, that, I have to report to other people too, kind of thing. Like sometimes they'll open the curtain a bit and you'll get that. And in some ways that's a bit of a service. Don't think about it necessarily as you're being brushed off, but you're being told that there are competing pressures and certain limits. So it's kind of setting some realistic expectations. But I tried to I'm not offended at what she's telling me, but I'm also not daunted. I'm not like, well, I understand you have a lot to deal with. You may not get to this. I kept trying to come back to some version of this is going to help your district. This is something that we care about. And yes, you're going to keep hearing about this, even though I just happen to catch you right now. Lindsay, any advice about like in that type of scenario, what's the most effective, like, what should the next step for my character be?
Well, particularly when you have that situation, you always want to defer to it's the chairperson is such a mercurial person in the state house, figure, excuse me, in the state house. Because some chair people are, think they run the biz and have like all the control over their committee. But the fact is, it's really the speaker's office and the Senate pro tem president pro tem, excuse me, that green lights legislation moving forward. And so it's that weird space where you have to show deference to the chairperson, of course. But the chair also is not the most knowledgeable of everything coming to their committee. And so you really need to lean on them a little bit more, to lean on the chair people as an advocate to make sure they're aware of what exactly is coming to them, because they may not know yet. Their bill authors may not have gotten to them yet. They have 10 bills each. Those are a lot of little children to keep in charge in line. And so it's a lot of information to juggle and a very short time frame to make it all happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If there are no other thoughts for this, I'm going to do one final call for Q&A questions. We've not gotten any yet, but I'll just give it another second. And in case any pop in, they'll have that time. While I'm doing that quick final call, I am also going to launch a satisfaction survey. Just please let us know if you enjoyed this. It helps us know if this is, worth continuing to do. So that survey is now live, and I'm going to check the chat again just to see if any questions came in. Okay. Let's see. I'm not seeing any, but I am seeing folks talk about how this was helpful. So I am really glad to hear that. People are talking about the intimidation aspect, and I know that can be very real. I think we all imagine people at the State House, in their suits and walking really fast. And you know what? That's not entirely unrealistic, but that doesn't mean there's not a place for you there too. And really they do expect it. It's just that we have to do our best to work in kind of the framework in the day that they have in front of them, because they're very busy people. So yeah, thank you so much, folks. I'm going to do some quick information about how you can get involved before we wrap up. But please keep taking that survey while I discuss this. So if you enjoyed this webinar series, which you can find all of them on YouTube, this one will be uploaded on YouTube shortly as well, then I think you would enjoy our in-person State House Day on January 30th. You can find this on our website. This event is going to be a really great opportunity for you to experience the state capitol in whatever capacity you would like to, whatever you feel comfortable with. You can go on a tour of the State House just to see what it's like. You'll get to network with more peers who have done varying levels of this type of advocacy. You can go in groups and listen to committee hearings or even attend a legislator meeting if you want to. It's all really, really flexible. It's also fun and it's free. So I really hope to see you there. We'll make sure that you get the event link to that in our follow-up email. But please do consider attending that event. I also want to make sure that folks know that Prosperity Indiana leads 3 different statewide advocacy coalitions that you may be interested in joining. All of the policy topics that were discussed in these simulations today are real topics, and pretty much all of them fall under one of the coalitions that we lead. So it's a good way to keep in touch. The first group I want to mention is the Hoosier Housing Needs Coalition. Here on screen, they focus on all things housing. And so if you're interested in that sort of thing, that's a good group for you to join. The next one is the Indiana Assets and Opportunity Network, which prioritizes financial empowerment, savings for the future, public benefits and programs, that type of thing. This group may also be of interest to you if you want to work on those issues, or if you're interested in the child tax credit, newborn tax credit stuff that Andrew mentioned. And then the final group that I want to make sure folks are aware of is Hoosiers for Responsible Lending. This is a coalition that fights for access to credit and pushes back on predatory loans that take advantage of people. Lindsay is actually one of our steering committee members on this particular coalition. But yeah, just be aware of all these groups. If you need help joining them, let me know. They are free. You can easily subscribe to them on our website. And with that, I just want to thank all of our amazing actors today who shared their expertise with us. I'm also appreciative of everyone who tuned in and folks who are going to be watching this on YouTube later. And as I stated at the beginning of the webinar, the recording and the slides will be made available in just a few short days. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you being here today. All right, have a great rest of your day, folks.
Thanks, everyone. Great job, Marie and Lindsay. And Hale.
Thank you.